Welcome to the Whispering Podcast.
Our goal is to change the volume on some of life's most difficult conversations.
This podcast is brought to you by Wisp, a hassle-free online service that brings sexual and reproductive health to you with no appointments necessary. Log on to hellowisp.com and in minutes you can request a same-day prescription, order birth control or emergency contraception delivery, and unlock the secret to better orgasms.
Most prescriptions can be picked up at a local pharmacy, or you can have meds shipped in discreet packaging directly to your home. Online consultations only take a few minutes, and all medication is prescribed by U.S. licensed doctors in all 50 states.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Whispering Podcast. Hi, Dr. Purdy.
Hey, Symone.
How are you? What's going on? How are you?
I honestly, I'm doing great. I'm so excited for this topic of conversation. I think people are going to love what we have in store for them.
As they should. You know, it's going to benefit them in the long run, so I'm here for it. I really am. So I know when we originally were talking before, it was about how we're going to have better sex. And I know when we talked with Dr. Penelope Neckowitz, she went through the 5 blueprints of eroticism, how to have better sex. So I'm just really excited for people to learn all about this. But I'd love for us to do a little tidbit on what we learned and, you know, how you felt about the whole episode. So tell me something that you took away from that, because that was a really fun episode.
A little recap. I tell you, we did have fun. And actually, maybe this is what one of the takeaways, I'll say 2. Number 1 is that talking about sex and talking about our bodies and talking about pleasure can be fun. It doesn't have to be uncomfortable or weird or raunchy or inappropriate. I mean, you'll hear when you listen to this discussion, we're just 3 professionals talking about something that applies to virtually every human on the planet. And it was fun and exciting and didn't have to be weird or uncomfortable. And it's a great conversation. Second, I think what I learned is that we can have a lot of expectations that we put on ourselves or maybe that partners put on us. But in reality, when we talk about the blueprints, there are so many different styles and ways to enjoy intimacy, and everyone is different, and it's not wrong or judgment filled. How about you?
No, honestly, when she went through all 5 of them, I was like, remember when we were talking about like, damn, I really am like 2 out of 5 of these. And it was really exciting to know that I've evolved over time, and not so much in the sense of like, I'm focused, you know, on not receiving my own form of pleasure, but that I find pleasure in pleasing my partner. So I was like, okay, Symone, you're not a little shell, you know, you have some things about you that are actually appeasing. So I think this will definitely get people more comfortable with themselves, because just like she was saying, a lot of women don't even look at their vagina, like they do not. And it's very interesting how something that's attached to you and a part of you, you still feel some shame around it. And I know it's because of, you know, what society has kind of like done to a woman's body. But I'm excited to see how people, 1, take information from this and apply it into their own lives, but 2, just how if the more we talk about it, the more people will get comfortable with it. So it was a lot of fun. I was just literally, after that episode, I was like, okay, I do really prefer this versus like the scratching when she was talking about the scratching. I'm like,
the vulva on your arm.
She was like, we have vulvas all over our body. I was like, okay. Didn't want to put it like that, but that was a lot of fun. So, you know, when it comes to what we want people to take away from this, outside of getting comfortable within their own bodies, is there any other takeaway out of that whole conversation that, you know, she had with us that you feel people really need to know and take home with them?
I think for me, really communication. She used a couple of examples, and I don't want to steal her thunder, so I won't repeat them here. But she used a couple of examples of clients that she worked with who were really suffering and struggling in their relationships because there's a blueprint mismatch. So understanding yourself, understanding your partner, and then being able to talk about it and have open dialogue is so much better and healthier and more productive than getting stuck in some sort of insecurity loop or fear or shame where you're not having those discussions.
Yeah, no. And I realize a lot of people don't talk prior to sex. They might talk afterwards or in the midst of it, but that communication prior, people just think, oh, it's just all about penetration, getting an orgasm, boom, 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 we're out. And it's no, I feel like the more communication that's involved, the more comfortable and natural it'll feel. But at the same time, if you're someone who has multiple partners, then I feel like it might be a little bit harder to have that form of intimacy with that. So do you think, how would somebody who has, they're not even in a relationship, they have multiple partners, how do you feel they should probably go about communicating, especially when it's like, oh, I'm having sex with 3 or 4 different people, every week?
And yeah, I mean, that is a very complicated question, because now you're not only talking about styles of intimacy and being physical with each other, but now you're talking about communication styles as well. And I can only imagine how challenging that must be, because not only are you expressing your physical needs and wants, but then you're also kind of matching that to your partner's ability or not to actually communicate with you. And so I would say, if you're someone who's single and you have multiple partners, look for those people who are willing to have that discussion with you. If someone is getting the honor and the privilege of being intimate with you, then they also need to be able to meet you at that communication level to be real and have those honest, frank discussions with you. And if they're not, then you're probably opening yourself up to a less than ideal and maybe even hurtful circumstance.
Yeah. And I know we try to normalize, having fluid partners and doing what you want. But I do realize there's so much energy involved with who you decide to, entangle yourself with sexually. And I'm realizing people really don't understand that. Yeah, you think, oh, it's just sex and da-da-da-da-da, but you're attaching so much to yourself of that person. And I feel like the conversation with Dr. Penelope just kind of enlightened that more, that it's so much more than just the physical. It's a spiritual aspect. It's a mental, it's an emotional thing. So I'm excited for people to hear her episode and for us to spend some more time with her to talk about it. So it was a lot of fun. My last question to you, though, at what point did you realize, because, when she went over the 5 blueprints and we were talking about how we feel like we're between 1 to 2 of those blueprints, at what point or what age did you realize that, you were changing or maturing or changing when it came to, sex?
Oh my goodness. I think that it has, honestly, I think it has been as I have started to be more of a spokesperson or a subject matter expert for companies like Wisp, right, is a great example. Over the last 3 years specifically, Wisp has pushed me to explore these topics and to talk about these things publicly in written print media, on podcasts, sometimes in person, like at the Sexology conference last month. And for me, it's been totally impossible for me to talk about this professionally without some self-reflection and looking inward and saying, okay, so the things that I'm saying, how does that line up with the things that I'm doing? And so I really think it's been a evolution over the last few short years for me.
Yeah. And I would definitely say probably honestly, I would say my late 20s. So probably around when I was 26, 27. But I had moved away from home. I moved to New York at the time. So I went from being this small town type of vibe to, and I know it sounds so cliche. It's oh, small town girl, big city. And you just lose your shit when you get out there. And I did, I literally lost my shit when I got to New York, because it was just so big and there were so many people. And I'm just it was a lot. And as I was meeting people, meeting partners, I was okay, I'll try this or I'll try that. Now, granted, there were things that I did that I wasn't comfortable with, but I still allowed myself to be put in that position. So it just opened my eyes to things that I'm not comfortable with, things that I just am not doing, things I will do or I'll compromise on. So I feel like experience really just put me in that place of being a little bit more open to trying things and also just being a partner that pleases as well.
Yeah. Personal boundaries. I mean, you learned where your boundaries are, which is great. Because if you don't know where your boundaries are, then how do you know what you enjoy, what you don't enjoy? And taking it back to the first thing we said, how do you communicate that? How can someone else respect your boundaries if you don't even know what they are?
Yep. And that was the thing. I wasn't advocating for myself. And I realized I needed to do that more. I was allowing other people, and this is not even in the terms of sex, but just in my own personal life, I was allowing so many people to have opinions and decisions on what I needed to do with my life. And I was too comfortable with that. And I realized this honestly, like last year, I'm like, Symone, you don't advocate for yourself. You reach out to different people, whatever the subject matter is, to get insight and guidance on things that it's going to affect you and not them. So I realized that not only with sex, but just in my personal life, I need to do better at advocating for myself and choosing what I want in the way that I want it. So I'm excited for everyone to hear this episode and just for us to get back talking with Dr. Penelope. So this is going to be a little short episode, I know, but I can't wait for the next one. And is there anything else you want to share with anybody before we close out?
No, but we want to hear your feedback. So if you have comments, if you have questions, we do expect to talk to Dr. Penelope again. I know you're going to have questions because we had questions and you will too. So send them in, reach out to us. Let us know what you want us to talk about the next time. We love to hear from you.
Awesome. All right, my dear, as always, it was so good to see you. I am happy to have you here and we will see you next time.
Yes, ma'am. See you soon. Bye.